Well, in stock market parlance, you get listed on the bourses, then you get welcomed into the small cap index, then the mid cap index, the Nifty Junior, and finally, the barometer of success to some is making an entry into the Nifty. Well, we have a new entrant this September 2018, JSW Steel, and we have our guest with us, the CMD of the JSW Group, Mr. Sajjan Jindal. Pleasure talking to you, sir. Thanks so much for speaking to CNBC TV 18. Well, what a journey it has been. Entry into the Nifty. 2018 itself, the Nifty is up only around 4-5%. The metal index is down, but JSW Steel is creating wealth for investors. It's up more than 45% and approaching the 100,000 crore mark. Your comment on that, sir?
No, it's very exciting. You feel that your whole process, your journey is vindicated when you feel that you achieve the first milestone of any large company of reaching 100,000 crore market cap. So it makes you feel good. You feel satisfied. But this is the first step.
Absolutely, and the journey has been such as well. The steel demand, the way it's grown in the last decade or so, ups and downs, and JSW Steel has been up there and been battling all the challenges as well. So let's talk about demand. We are coming to an end of a monsoon season, and over the past decade or so, some believe that maybe the first half of the year has been one of the best we have seen in close to a decade. Your comment on that, sir?
Well, steel industry is cyclical in its nature. Yeah. So you can never predict a secular growth or secular one-way street. It's always ups and downs, and you have to have nerves of steel to be a steel man or be in the business of steel. So therefore, we are not really as steel producers. We don't look at quarterly performances or. We are always prepared for the downfall, but what we have done over the years in JSW Steel is that we have made a very strong balance sheet. We have been very careful and very conservative in our approach, in our growth, while staying aggressive on the growth, but we have stayed conservative on our capital spend, and we have built this company brick by brick, with a lot of care and a lot of precautions. So that's the result. That what we are seeing today is of that, the hard work and the labor that the entire JSW team has put in place over the years to make it where it is.
Well, Mr. Jindal, as you said, the steel industry is cyclical in nature. Is there a possibility that steel is a lead indicator in comparison to our GDP? Do you believe that the steel industry can't grow faster than Indian GDP?
So normally what I've seen is that over the last 20 years, that if the GDP is growing at over 7%, then the steel industry tends to grow at 1.2 times the GDP. If GDP, when GDP touched 9%, steel industry grew 1.5 times that.
Right.
And if the GDP grows at 5%, then steel industry grows at 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
So it's quite let's say there is no standard norms, but this is the norm which we have seen we have tracked over the last 20 years, and we believe it makes sense that when the GDP is, for example, now the GDP is growing at 7.5%, and steel is growing at 8.5%. And the last 2-3 years ago, when GDP was at 5%, we grew at 1 or 2%.
Right.
So there is a correlation there we see.
Just going by what you're saying, sir, there could be at least a bit of a steady phase for the steel industry for the coming year.
We believe within JSW Steel, we believe that we are in for a good run because the economy is doing well, and we believe that Indian economy will continue to do well, because of the huge emphasis on the infrastructure development, on housing, on various initiatives that this government has taken.
Yes.
So we believe that the steel demand will continue to be very strong.
Okay, steel demand continue to be strong, but in the last couple of months, or at least in 2018 as well, the other focal point has been the dollar strength and the rupee weakness. How is that playing out? Do you believe the rupee weakening gives some protection for the domestic producers?
Well, I'm not a great admirer of rupee weakening. I believe that if the rupee weakens, though momentarily we may all feel that it gives us more protection, our exports fetches us more rupees, You know, I don't like it. I feel that rupee weakening is weakening of our country.
Okay.
So country's economy. So I'm a big fan of a stronger rupee. Maybe temporarily we will all face music or face difficulties, but eventually country will strengthen, and so I'm always. But this time the rupee has partly weakened also because dollar has actually strengthened globally,
right, against,
if you see, all the currencies. But still, I believe that rupee has still gotten weakened, and which is not a very I don't like it.
Right, and you know, in fact, just to take that point forward, in the last 5 years, the rupee has been a relative outperformer. It's just in this year, because we are seeing the Fed hike rates and dollar strength, that's the reason why, in fact, we are at around that 72 odd mark. But let's take that point forward, Mr. Jindal. You know, there is talk that we're going to see added duties coming in for the steel industry, maybe an increase of around 2.5% to around 5% approximately. Would you push that agenda forward?
Not really. I mean, if it happens, it's okay. But I don't think that's really going to matter, because today we are sitting quite pretty. Prices are at good, reasonable level. Global prices are at reasonable level, and there is no need for any protection for the Indian steel industry. So, having said that, the steel prices today in domestic, if you see the domestic steel prices is in any block of the world, for example, if you see in the US, if I take HR coil as the benchmark, then prices of HR coil in the US is $900. In Europe, it is equivalent to about $670, which is 560 euros. And in China and Japan, Korea is also about $650 home market prices.
Right.
And India is also around $650. So in dollar terms, more or less, except USA, where they have Trump has put in this 25% duties on steel, every other market is more or less at $650 to $700 range. So we are also, India is also at that same price range. So therefore, I don't see the need to really increase the duties anymore.
Well, that's an interesting point, sir, you made. And also, you know, want to take that point forward about Japan as well as South Korea. Now, that's from where bulk of our imports are coming in there. Nearly around 60% of our imports, at least in the last couple of months, are coming in from these FTA countries. Could there be a probable proposal to tinker with the FTA, maybe get steel out of the FTA? Could that be a possibility?
So today it looks okay, in the sense that, because as I said, the prices are at good level, and we are able to sustain our businesses. And Japan, Korea at 0% duty is exporting into India. We are not complaining much. But when the markets go bad, you know, both these countries, Japan and Korea, are nearly 50% surplus. In a sense, they consume only 50% in their home market, and 50% they export. And signing such kind of agreement with these countries is very damaging to India. So I'm sure that the government is quite agile to this whole concept. And if they see too much of steel coming in from Japan and Korea into India, then they would be definitely, either they would be taken out of the FTA, or there will be anti-dumping on those countries.
The other big challenge has been, Mr. Jindal, over the last year or so, has been the tariffs that the United States has imposed. Maybe it's a war between the United States and China, but the global steel environment could go into a bit of a tizzy. How big a challenge is that trade war that is likely to play out?
I mean, it is certainly upsetting the global, as we said, the World Trade Body, or the whole concept of the global village, which we were saying that any country can export and any country can import, and it is good for the commerce, good for various economies. But I think what Trump has done, Trump is somebody who doesn't like to keep things in the normal situation. You know, he likes to challenge everything, and he does it he likes to abrupt things. Right. So every morning he wakes up and he likes to abrupt things, right? so that's his style, and we have to accept it. And I think the steel lobby in the US is very effective and very strong, and they have convinced President Trump to put in this duty. In fact, the US have always been $100, well, let's say 10%, 15% higher price than the world price, because they have anti-dumping duties against every country in the world. Right. But now with this 25% duty, they are giving it even more protection to the American steel industry. So, but that's okay. I don't complain much about it because I feel that it is US's policies and it is their industry, so it's okay.
Well, sticking with the global piece then, JSW Steel's capacity was less than 2 million in 2002. Today it's closer towards 20 million tons, and by 2020 we'll be on the verge of maybe going to around 24 million tons or thereabouts. Where is it headed? If you could tell us the targeted capacity in India, and what about the globe? There have been various acquisitions that you've made even in the United States. There is some expansion in Europe as well.
So, we have taken close to 20 years to come to 18 million tons capacity, which is what it is today. And our vision is that we have got a very strong foundation, we have a very strong base, and it'll be, and India is a great place to be in because it is the country which is probably the only country in the world which has got a expanding demand in steel or in any product, actually, in any commodity or anything. So we are really very fortunate that we are part of this economy at this time of its life cycle, and JSW has probably one of the strongest balance sheet in the steel industry globally, and so therefore we are really thinking of taking this to the next level. And we have already announced plans to take our capacities to 25 million tons without the inorganic growth, and with inorganic growth hopefully to 30 million tons, and then our vision plan is that by 2025 we want to be a 40 million ton steel company out of India, and plus probably 8 or 10 million tons we will have overseas.
Okay.
So that kind of company we are looking at by 2025.
So by 2025, 30 million tons domestically and international capacity of around
2025, 40 million tons domestic and 10 million overseas.